Hey Trek Stars, I hope you guys are doing great and thank you for joining me today. And I hope you guys have been enjoying my little film trips around the world. I've been taking a lot of trips lately, but now I have to stop for a little bit because the winter is coming and the weather is all dreary and rainy and cold. And I'm back at my base here in the Netherlands where I'll be staying and probably until I go back to California for the real long winter that's coming. So I'm taking a little break from filming for a while, at least the travel vlogs, because like I said, I don't really like to travel in this type of weather and I'm kind of a little bit tired. I've been kind of on the road for a while now. Like I spent 3 months in Romania, most of you guys have seen that, and then I went to Serbia, and then I went to Croatia, and then I went to Bruges, Belgium, which you'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks. I'm about to upload the videos from Croatia and Bruges, I think in the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to do a Q&A first so you guys can get to know a little bit more about me, Trek Star Sam. So I've asked my subscribers to write down some travel questions for me and send me some travel questions so I can kind of answer them. And I thought that it would be really, really fun to do that. So I'm going to be doing this Q&A today. So where are you originally from? Well, I'm originally from San Francisco, California, and I spent most of my life there. Question number 2, how did you first get into traveling and going overseas? That's a good question. Well, I didn't travel that much when I was young. I pretty much stayed at home most of the times in San Francisco. We went on family vacations, but we never really traveled overseas. But I think when I was young, when I was 9, I started writing pen pals. Like I've had pen pals from all over the world, and that we would send each other like pictures, candies, like mixtapes. And I really got into going overseas and getting curious about what was happening overseas then. And I was very, very shocked that, the kids that I was writing with, they were around my age and they all were writing English, and a lot of them were writing me to practice their English. And I was very, very impressed by that. And I think that kind of got me started in wanting to see what was out there, outside of my 4 walls and outside of my city and even outside of my country. So I think I kind of got the travel bug because of all those pen pals. Let's see, another question here. What was the first country you've ever traveled to? The first country I ever traveled to in my life was Japan. I was 22 years old, fresh out of school, and I went to Japan with my best friend, Carrie. We went together. She was doing some program in Kyoto, and I'd never been to Japan before, and I was a huge fan of anime and Sailor Moon and lots of different shows from Japan, and I wanted to see it for myself. And I took Japanese in high school, and I also studied Japanese in university. So basically I wanted to go off and show my language skills and really enjoy and see the old temples and shrines and have the food, go to karaoke and things like that. And it was a really fantastic trip. I loved Japan so much I ended up going back the next year. So I went to Japan for the first time in 2005, and then I also went in for 2006 and 2007 as well. Okay, so what other countries have you lived in? Okay, I've lived, the first country I technically lived in, I count it, it's Italy. I was there doing a 6-week program at the University of Salerno. I was teaching PhD students the TOEFL exam. So I lived there for 6 weeks. And then during that time, I had an opportunity to go to Turkey, and I went to Turkey, Istanbul, and I fell in love with it, completely when I was there. It was just so beautiful, so breathtaking. And I decided that I wanted to move there. And while I had a chance to visit the first time, I spoke to some people working at an English school, and they're like, oh wow, you have such a lot of experience teaching, so why don't you just come and we could fit you in, we'll give you a job immediately. And so I met some really amazing people during my vacation there, and so I decided in January to move out to Turkey, and I ended up spending a year in Turkey, 6 months in Istanbul, and then I went to Izmir for 6 months. I was working in universities, teaching English there, and so it was really an amazing time. And then after that, I had a chance to go to Poland. It's so funny that when I was living in Istanbul, I had a dream about moving to Poland, and at that time, I'd never even visited Poland. But it was so strange. So after I finished living in Istanbul and in Izmir, I moved back to San Francisco for a while, and then decided to just go to Poland. And I love Warsaw so much that I decided to move there, pretty much. And pretty much I did the same thing. I got a job teaching English, I got a work permit, and I stayed in Warsaw, I think, like a year and a half, and it was literally the best year and a half of my life. Poland is wonderful. The people are really great and were open and welcoming to me. I had to turn down jobs teaching English. It was just so, I had so much work there, and I really had a good time. The only reason why I left Poland is because it became too difficult for me to live there. They had a new government, I think, at that time, and they changed the residency laws, and that was also around the same time that they had a lot of Ukrainians coming in. So it took them forever to process my paperwork, and they never did give me an answer of my residency card. They kept asking me for more information, more information. So the bureaucratic process was just too difficult for me after a while to stay. But while I was living in Poland, I had a chance to visit Croatia. And when I went to Croatia as well, I fell in love with that country as well. And so I got a volunteer visa there, and I decided to move there for a year to teach English, and I did get a residency permit there. It was very difficult, but I did. So I stayed in Croatia for about a year and 2 months, and then I left and moved to Albania for about 8 or 9 months after that. Albania was much easier because as an American, we can live there for a year with no paperwork. So that really, really made it easy. And Albania is also in the Balkans, and it has a very, very nice climate, and I really like living there. Okay, so here's another interesting question. Do you have any travel disaster stories? Travel disaster stories? Thank God, no. I haven't had any big disasters when I was traveling. Okay, I lost my debit card once or twice. Probably just once, I think. And basically that wasn't such a disaster. I pretty much had to lay low, and my bank back in America is quite good at sending replacement cards. So, I just had to wait for a couple of days, call them, report it, cancel it, and then, in a couple of days later, they rushed me out an emergency card. But other than that, I'm not going to say I ever had any disasters, but definitely I've had some challenges. Every time you move to a new country, you're going to have challenges, fitting in, being understood by people. Probably countries that I've had the most challenges in was probably Turkey, because I decided to just up and move there. And in Istanbul, there's not a lot of people that, where I was living that spoke English. And of course, up to that time, I didn't speak any Turkish. And I didn't have time to take it before I decided to just up and move there. But pretty much everywhere I had gone before that, the young people specifically had spoken enough English for me to get by, to go to the grocery store, to go shopping, to get the things I needed. But since Turkey was the first country I actually lived in long term, I noticed that after I moved there, the English level of people were actually very, very low. So it was very difficult for me. Moving into a place, like my own roommate didn't speak English very well. So, it came kind of a project for me. She was teaching me Turkish, I was teaching her English. But it was even hard to get day-to-day stuff done. So the first line I actually learned in Turkish was "Elbise askısı var mı?" which means, do you have any coat hangers here? Because I didn't know I needed to hang up my clothes. I got in an apartment, but I didn't have any coat hangers, and I didn't know how to ask for them, and they didn't really understand when I was trying to ask for them in English. So I had my friend tell me how to ask for it. And so basically I never took a lesson in Turkish in my life, an official class, but I got from 0 to functional, and I'm gonna say 4 or 5 months, because definitely in Turkey, you need that. Because typically in other countries, I've noticed that maybe people that work in restaurants, in coffee shops like Starbucks and stuff, typically in other countries, they have spoken enough English, especially where tourists were involved and foreigners. But in Turkey, depending on where you go, maybe in the real touristy areas, some of them kind of do, but from where I was living, nobody did. So I really did have to learn enough Turkish to survive. So that was probably the biggest challenge that I've ever faced when I was living abroad. Okay, here's another question here. Do you have a favorite country? I have 2 favorite countries. Probably my 2 favorite countries are Japan and Italy, just for their sheer beauty. They're very old and they're very ancient, and they're very, very different. But I like going to see ancient ruins, old temples, and old ruins and things like that. So definitely Italy for its sheer beauty. Florence is literally the most beautiful city I've ever been in my life. I really love Florence. And also probably Kyoto in Japan is my favorite city of all time. It's really, really amazing. Nara, Japan is also very beautiful as well, especially if you go to the park, Nara Park. And Rome as well was breathtaking when it comes going back to Italy. So definitely Italy and Japan are definitely my two favorites. Is there a country or a city that you would never visit again? Oh, yes, actually. Well, I'm not going to ever say that I would never visit a city again, but I had a really, really bad time in Paris. No disaster or anything like that, but I went to Paris and the weather was really bad. I didn't speak any French, besides je ne parle pas français, meaning I don't speak French. And people just weren't that nice to me. I was trying to ask them information. Nobody wanted to stop and help me. This was in like maybe 2009 or something. So this was before the days of Google Maps and everybody, you know, having internet abroad and being able to look up their addresses. So I was staying in Barbès in Paris and I was trying to find, you know, what train to take. And, you know, and no one wanted to stop. I kept trying to ask people. Half of them didn't want to stop and help me, and the ones that did, when they knew that I didn't speak any French, they kind of just turned up their noses and walked in the other direction. And I was so sad. I was just about to cry. I was just very upset. And finally, this African man with, I think, 3 kids, he didn't speak a word of English, but he tried to help me, and I told him where I was going, and I said Barbès, and he told me what train to take. He had 3 little boys who were very cute. And they couldn't speak English either, but they kept smiling at me, and I think they liked my hair, so they kept trying to, you know, touch it, and they were really cute and everything. And the guy finally told me where to get off, and he was really, really kind and nice to me, and I was able to find my way because of that one nice guy who would stopped and decided to help me. But in Paris, they just did not seem very nice, and I think that combined with the weather, and then I also got sick there. I was really sick, I think, for 3 days, and I could hardly get out of bed. I was just had a really bad cold or some kind of respiratory thing, and my back was hurting, and I couldn't get out of bed. And I only really got to go around the city, I think, for 1 day, and the weather was still bad at the time. I think because of that, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. I really haven't wanted to go back. So Paris definitely has been the city that I haven't been hankering to go back to because of that experience. So what is on your travel bucket list for 2020? Oh, wow, that is a big question. Okay, in no particular order. Egypt, definitely. I've been dying to visit Cairo and Sharm el-Sheikh and Alexandria for years, so I'm hoping to get to Egypt next year. Kiev, Ukraine, anywhere in Moldova. I've been fascinating about that country for a long time. The Republic of Georgia. Back to Turkey, I'm thinking. I have a friend who's getting married in Turkey, and he invited me to his wedding in September, so I might go back, do some vlogging over there. I want to go to Taiwan. A friend of mine, when we were talking about going to Taiwan. Japan, I have plans to go back there as well. And if I'm there, I'm definitely going to go to Korea. I've been dying to go to Korea for many years. And hopefully South America. I've never actually been to the Southern Hemisphere, and it's definitely on my bucket list. I've been wanting to go to Colombia, Chile, and Peru for a long, long time now as well. I highly doubt I'm going to be able to get to all of them next year. But I'm hoping that I can cross at least 5 of them off of the list. I'm also looking into Russia as well. I'm looking into getting a visa for that because as Americans, we need visas to go over there. So looking into all of those countries for 2020. Let's hope I'm able to get to as many of them as I can, but I'm not sure. But you guys, of course, will be able to see every place I go on my vlog, as I'm going to be doing a lot of vlogging next year of all my travels. Okay, great. Okay, so how do you fund your travels? Traveling is very expensive. How do you fund everything? Well, I work. I mean, obviously, like I said in my previous answers, I used to work in all the places that I lived in. Now I'm pretty much a digital nomad. I'm not working in schools anymore. I'm teaching English online. I've written a book. I do a lot of different things online. Sometimes I do freelance writing. I do lots of different things to fund my travel, and I typically live in pretty inexpensive countries, so, you know, the rent that I have to pay, I definitely am making enough to cover all that. when I'm a budget traveler, a lot of times I'll stay in hostels, I'll stay in Airbnbs. I try to travel during kind of off-peak times so I can get good flight deals and things like that. So I definitely use my common sense when I'm traveling, and I definitely fund it through various means, mostly online, being a digital nomad. All right, so let me just take one more question for this Q&A, as I don't want this to be too long. Okay, so what was your favorite travel of 2019? Ooh, wow, what a good question and a very difficult one to say. But definitely my trip to Ghana. I was able to go to Ghana in May. For the first time in my life, I was on the continent of Africa. And I have African roots, so it's been something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And Ghana was simply amazing. It was very hot, so it was my first African country, and it felt really good to kind of reconnect with my roots and, get into a little bit of the African culture, stuff that I didn't really get growing up. And so it really felt good to get to. Ghanaian people are lovely, and they were so welcoming to me, and, they were very helpful. And the food was amazing as well, and I really enjoyed it. I have a really good friend that I've known for a long time. He's from Ghana, and he was able to be there at the same time, and he was able to take me around. So I had a local guide. So it was a really, really amazing trip. So Ghana definitely was one. Unfortunately, I hadn't yet started my vlog during that time, but it would have been amazing. I do have a lot of video that I did take in Ghana, but not enough to do in a whole episode. But probably at the end of the year, when I'm going to be doing a little smorgasbord, a little buffet of the places that I went through this year, you'll see clips from Ghana in that, so you'll be able to see what it was like down there. But it was absolutely an amazing trip, and I would go back in a heartbeat if I could. It was fantastic. Other places that I went to that I really enjoyed in 2019 was Jordan, and you have seen my trip to Jordan on the vlog, so you saw all the amazing places I went to, Jerash, Petra, and etc. And probably Romania as well. That was probably the third place that I really, really enjoyed being in. I had a wonderful 3 months there. People were kind, welcoming. The food was amazing. Cost of living was pretty low. And I really had a good time in Romania. So definitely from 2019, those were my travel highlights of the year. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That's about it for me today. And I hope you like this Q&A. And if you would like me to do another Q&A to answer all the questions I wasn't able to get to today, please let me know in the comments. I would love to have more videos like this where I'm not actually traveling, but we're actually talking about travel. And I want to get back on here and maybe talk about my experiences living abroad and give advice. Like if you want to move abroad to Europe or some other countries, I have a lot of insight on that. So I would like to talk about a few other things as well, travel related things, and also fun things like packing, what kind of how to pack more efficiently and effectively, maybe some other stuff like culture shock and things like that abroad. So if there's anything you'd want me to talk about travel related things, please let me know in the comments, and I hope to be able to do more videos very soon, especially over this nice long winter that we have coming up when I'm not going to be heading outside much. So it'll be fun to sit down and do a few things and talk to you guys a little bit more personally, one-to-one like this. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it if you would. And I guess I'll be seeing you guys around the globe very soon, or maybe even back in the apartment. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.